We're getting into our GAA preview now. The National League kicks off this weekend. We've got Galway Hope, new rules, Desi Dubs, and a host of other things coming up over the course of the next 20 minutes or so. Contenders and formats, also the two topics coming up. Kieran Donaghy is still with us in studio. Let's start with Galway. Let's start with what Kerry have done, what Pádraig Joyce is starting to show us early on in the year. You can't really judge anything before the National League, but I think as a neutral, people can be very, very excited about what he's going to do this year.
Yeah, I think, I think his appointment has kind of, Kevin Walsh did a good job in getting this Galway team to be really competitive in the last few years. And yeah, people criticise about the way he played, but he went horses for courses. I don't think he had enough backs that he could go out there and mark the best teams man to man. So like every team, I think it was because Galway is such a footballing county, to see them get back and tackle back and be slightly defensive. There's probably more made of it than actually needed to be. When you look at Dublin or any of the other top teams, everybody's kind of gets in a defensive shell now when they lose a ball. But they counter-attack maybe a bit quicker and have better players, that when it gets up there that it looks more dynamic and you end up getting scores. But I think the appointment of Joyce will excite the Galway people. Firstly, to Kerry, unbelievable achievement to get 3 All-Ireland clubs in a row, and look, whatever way you want to win it, you want to beat a talented football team like the Crokes, a powerhouse and then the last day was a pure dogfight, and they were still able to rally that. When you would have thought maybe at the end of extra time, the way it went that last 10 minutes, you would have thought that the momentum was with the opposition, but they just rallied it in and they held it in and they came out and were just clinical like they have been, which is a hallmark of Kerry and their kick passing. And I think Joyce will probably get more Kerry lads into the setup, and I would think that they would their style of play would be a huge kind of way that Galway would look to play. It would be if I was in that job, because what Joyce has, if you throw in Comer and Shane Walsh, Farrer inside is an unbelievable ball winner for Kerry, and I think he's a guy that, you have to look at playing just because of his ball winning ability and the way he's so smart, his passing ability, how he brings his vision, how he brings people into play. And I think when you have the likes of Walsh and Comer maybe in around him, that's a really dynamic full forward line for Galway. And you've just got players there that you really have to look at to get them in, and I think Joyce will look to do that, and it is a very exciting time for Galway football. And is it all going to happen straight away? I wouldn't be so sure. The league is so competitive, they could be at the wrong end of a few results, but they mightn't be. They might end up in the league final, and then you'll be really ramping up to the summer with them. But they're kind of, you can't really judge on the FBD league, really.
At the same time with Galway, there is a depth of information within the squad on how to not get hammered against the very top teams in the country. I felt that Kevin Walsh needed to do a sort of Jim McGuinness jump that he did between 2011 and 2012, but he needed to do between 2018 and 19, and that perhaps didn't happen. So I wonder, is it wise of Pádraig Joyce, and I'm not saying he's going to do this, but to throw everything out in terms of the old system, because I think there was many effective parts of it. It just needed to be a bit more offensive at certain times.
Yeah, I wouldn't be throwing it all out, because you saw in 17 against us, we kind of exposed against Kerry in that quarter-final, which is where the following year Kevin really came back with a more structured system. He was never going to be left open like he left himself open that day in Croke Park against us, and it was only really in the first half. He even tweaked it a bit at half-time, and they kind of held around for a while. But I think, I don't necessarily know if Joyce has the man-to-man guys to just go out there and say, we'll go man-to-man, and I don't think he's got possibly it doesn't have that level of 6 defenders that he can truly trust to go toe-to-toe with the Dublin 6 forwards, and and there's nobody really doing that anymore. So I think it'll be very much focused on how the counter-attack can be better, and where to position the likes of Walsh, Comer, Farrer, Ian Burke, these guys. What shape does he fit them in? That when these guys get the ball first, how quick can they get out past the halfway line? Like Kerry do, are very good. They get it out to the 45 numerous times in the semi-final against Nemo. Kerry were actually in defensive positions because Nemo had gone deep, so Kerry had come back in a very solid position. And it was very interesting to see Kerry work it out through the hands, but once they passed the 45, the head was up, and it was a long 30-yard kick pass into space. Inevitably, Farrer would be out in front, or Ian Burke would be out in front, and there were their two kind of outlets. And, Galway have fantastic options for that kind of role. Shane Walsh's pace is made for that. Cormer's brute strength and power and speed is made for that.
Is Shane Walsh the best player in the country who doesn't have an All-Star?
Shane Walsh is extremely talented, and but he has to back it up with that consistency, and he has to be a guy this year that, puts it on himself. He's got all the ability. He's unbelievably talented. But I'm sure as a Galway person, or even looking in from the outside, his consistency, which would be something that he'd want to work on. But skill level, kicking ability, power, speed, he's fantastic. But I'm sure Joycey will be challenging him, and maybe the captaincy will kind of push that on him. That listen, we can't have a 10 out of 10 performance, in a Connacht semi-final and get a 5 out of 10 performance in a semi-final. Or in a final after that, and I'm not saying he does that, but I just think that level of consistency is huge for Walsh this year. But I'd be hugely excited as a Galway fan with obviously Comer, getting him back and getting him healthy is a huge thing. I just think Farrer, is a guy that they could play as just an out-and-out ball winner. A guy that can win it and has the vision to make life easier for Comer and Walsh, that they don't have to win the ball, take on men, try and get scores. I think Farrer, pop it into him in the D, get the boys curling off him at speed. Like, if Farrer won a ball going to his left, a crossfield ball like he does with Currafin, and he'd Shane Walsh at 15 looping around and coming at him at speed, it's pretty unstoppable. You're probably picking up black card, which means you've a guy in the sin bin for 10 minutes, or else you've a guy going through on goal. So I really think that's the axis. They've got Daly, and they've got fantastic kickers. Conroy's back. They got fantastic kickers of the ball out the pitch. But them guys inside are going to be, whether Galway can be really competitive. And when I say really competitive, can they challenge for an All-Ireland this year? Yeah,
it'll have to be in their aim. And Paul Joyce has made no mistake about not saying that. Like, he has said that an All-Ireland is what people in Galway expect eventually. And they're playing Monaghan this Sunday at 2:30. I think if there was like a league pass to watch one game in football this year, you'd almost pick Galway just to see what they do over the next few weeks. You mentioned the possibility of sin bins here. You're one of the coaches who's managed in the new era already of football. What have you noticed? New laws, advance mark, sin bin, all that sort of stuff?
It's a tricky one because it's come upon us without too much explanation. We've heard the rules and we've seen the few kind of arty picture clips of how this works and where the kick has to be from. But I think the GAA probably need to get a video out there before the weekend, whether they do it tomorrow or Saturday morning, and actually show, okay, a reffing a situation where a ball is kicked into guys, what guys have to do when they win it. Because my biggest thing, and firstly, the black card is more of a punishment than it was, which is probably what they were trying to. But how are they going to officiate this further down the line, away from the highest level? It's fine at the highest level when you have a fourth official that's got watches and stopwatches and clocks, and however they're going to. Like last week when we played at Lone IT, we 2 fellas in a black card and they'd won. If that's a county league or a South Kerry championship game or a North Kerry championship game in October, and there's one ref there, and he might have an umpire behind each goals, and one crowd are doing the line on one side and the other crowd, how are they going to officiate this? And look, my thing about the black card, I spoke heavily on it last year, something that I thought would make life very easy for refs and make the game higher scoring and more punishment for the crimes would be that whatever a ref thinks was a cynical trip or foul or pull down, that the ball is brought up to the 21 and it's popped over the bar and teams can pin teams in. That's the method in the Aussie rules, is that 50-metre rule. It's so easy. Every ref at every level would be able to do it. I think you'd have teams policing themselves. I think rather than people going after refs about black cards, I think people would be questioning their own teammates. But look, they've gone with this black card again, and it is a bigger punishment, but I honestly don't know how they're going to work it at the lower levels. I'm asking the umpire the last day, when is my first player back on? He was looking at his watch, and his watch just at the time of the game. Now, he had a pad in front of him, and maybe he was doing it off the pad, but how exact could he be? I don't know. Did he have the seconds my guy was gone off? Because every second matters. If it's late in the game and you want to get a guy on with 2.5 minutes to go versus 2 minutes, that 30 seconds being down to 13 could end up in a goal. So that's your game and that's your season. So the black card, it is a bigger punishment, but I think the refs do their best, and it's a really tough job at the best of times, even at the highest level when you have support and you have Hawkeye and all this, and our guys do a really good job of officiating. But I feel sorry for the referees that are getting the €30 or whatever they're getting to referee a very passionate derby game in any county or club in Ireland, and they're out there trying to ref it as it is. Give guys black cards, know when fellas come on, and if fellas come on early they get a yellow card and an automatic red. I just don't see how that is feasible, and I think there needs to be a real look at how do we make this better. And we're bringing in a lot of rules from the Aussie rules. We're bringing in marks and offensive marks and all these very complicated things, and the best rule that the Aussies have that has taken every bit of cynicism out of the game over there is the 50-metre rule, and we won't look at that. I can't for my life get why we haven't brought that in. If we're going to go as far as the Aussie rules to make it easier for them to go after our players by bringing in a mark, how can't we bring in a simple rule that a guy down in Carsavine reffing a South Kerry final, if he sees a player drag down a player out in 45, that he blows his whistle and runs 50 metres, and they get used to the 50 metres, they get used to that distance, they turn, they pick their spot, they know roughly where they are on the pitch, they bring that up, and now all of a sudden you have a 35-yard free, or make it very simple that any cynical foul or pull down late on in the game, any time in the game, is the ball is brought up to the 21, you pop it over the bar. And if that cynical foul happens inside the 21-yard line, somebody goes on a run and is pulled down, it's an automatic penalty. That ends pull down and drag downs. That ends a talented corner forward late on in the game, winning a ball, turning around, and you still have managers now, even that it is a bigger punishment late on in the game, that we're trying to, this was brought in famously for the Kavanagh tackle on McManus. I did something similar in 2007 against Shane Ryan when he turned me and he was going through on goal. I felt that the thing that was needed was to be cynical and stop the guy from scoring a goal. Was I wrong? Not for my team. Was I wrong from looking in from the outside? Yeah, it's not nice to see, but, we're trying to win an All-Ireland, we're in an All-Ireland semi-final here. It's not, it's too serious and we've put too much in for me to feel that wasn't acceptable. But, it's...
Well, one of the things that's very, we'll get into something a little bit later on, I was basically watching a couple of games from a few years ago, 2013, and it's amazing how behaviour has changed post Sean Kavanagh tackle, post black card. It has worked behaviourally. Now, the punishment people say is wrong, but your idea there of taking the idea from the Aussie rules, it will have a marked change. These rule changes do work. The behaviour of GAA players does change. It is actually jarring when you watch games from different times of the last decade.
No, it has helped.
But even that, what I'm saying is even that has helped, and that's not the perfect rule. Imagine if you had a better rule.
If you had, if you had the right rule in, and the rule that was easiest to officiate for everybody from the bottom down. I'm sure there's refs all over the country dreading going into county league games at the start of March, dreading it. There's already enough on their plate to ref these games. How they're going to manage all that, I don't know, unless the GAA have an answer for that. I think with the marks and the black cards, should they not have a video around to all, should it not be on the 9-1 News? Should it not be here? Should we not be showing a video on how these things are going to be refed? When you have to put your hand up? Do you have to put your hand up? Do defenders have to put their hand up? How many steps can you take afterwards? It's so
players are going in confused this
weekend.
The
players are going to be confused. And do you know what
the thing is, they're the ones who actually have the most clarity, because the game's televised, like this Saturday night in Croke Park, for example, will be the best version of the rules that we will get. But you can be sure that people will walk away saying it's a disaster. So imagine what it's going to be like in the club game.
Correct.
We should move on. That's the good stuff. It's interesting that you say that, because the advanced mark is something that's actually probably been more spoken about than the sin bin.
Yeah.
But we'll probably get into that a little bit later on.
Tommy,
yeah, exactly. Desi and the Dubs is something we want to chat about. It's going to be possibly the biggest theme now for the next few weeks as to what actually happens with this team. I've got a suspicion that not much at all might happen. It will be the usual conveyor belt of new names that will come through, and a lot of the new names that we associate with Dublin at the moment are already fairly high profile, given the way they went in the under-21s last year, given the run out that the likes of Evan Comerford has already had in the Dublin jersey, like one of the stars of the league last year. Do you have any concerns for Dublin?
No. I don't. Desi's going to be... Desi's obviously a very good and talented manager. He's a good leader. He was a great player. He was a leader when he played. When he speaks, he's... you can tell he's a guy that carries weight. he's walking into this Dublin dressing room, you know, that's pretty much self-policed, I would say, by the likes of Cluxton and certain leaders in that dressing room. You know, under Gavin, they will know what works. And if a manager came in trying to change that, he'd be outside his mind. You know, if some guy came in and goes, okay, forget what you used to do, I want us to play this way, or I want us to do this way, the players would be like, oh, hold on a minute. Like, we you know, there'd be a fairly instant kickback. However, to be done, whether some fella'd say it in the meeting straight up and take the shot for his teammates. But, you know, Desi would be very cute. He'll have his own little tweaks. He might have little ideas on how to do certain things. He might look to explore certain types of tactics here and there.
What would you be expecting?
You could, you know, they could do anything. They could try anything. You know, you've got a huge team. If you're losing a game, can you put Fenton into full forward? Who's going to stop him in the air? If you put in a decent crossfield ball to him, he's going to mark it, he's going to tap it over the bar. If they're ever in that position and they're losing the game, you know, they mightn't go that way. They might play the normal way. They've got other guys, you can do that to Con. Maybe they might you know, they did fall back, you know, in a defensive structure for a lot of the year. Maybe they have something where they maybe push up on teams because they've got such pace in the back line and such good tacklers and such physique out there that they might go to Barcelona or Liverpool route, actually really push up on teams and force teams to nearly kick it away in panic. And, you know, they can do a few of those things, but again, I would say they'd be situational things, scenario-based things, but I would say for the on the mainstay, I don't think much will change. And I still think they're going to be right there. The league will be interesting, and they did use the league to gain guys last year. Did they want to lose to Kerry? Did they want to lose to Tyrone? No, they didn't. But, you know, that happens sometimes in league, and I really think last year for the Dubs was about the 5 in a row, and I think that's what the lax performances were in the league last year. And I'm probably being harsh saying lax.
Yeah, like I mean, there was a brawl at the end of the Kerry-Dublin game.
I think Tyrone were brilliant and Kerry were brilliant on the night, and the Kerry game was a titanic battle, and Dublin were 4 down, and they were down to 14 men, and they brought it back to level, and Crowley and Dave Moran worked a great score to win it. So, but, you know, just we haven't seen Dublin lose like that. You know, even the Tyrone game, were Tyrone were very good that night again. But I would say that they'll be ready to go again to start of the year. They've got such depth and talent. Is there a contender outside of Kerry this year to challenge Dublin? That is, obviously. I think there is. You know, I think there'll be like Mayo are under the radar, which is dangerous in my eyes. Tom Parsons is back, and they'll have found a bit of youth last year. You know. And they've suffered kind of injuries at vital times last year. Ruan got an injury, and obviously Tom got a horrific injury. That's their starting midfield this year. Yeah, possibly. Or you push Aidan O'Shea into a more advanced role. That is a huge knock-on for any team of that level. It does. Does Aidan O'Shea go into full forward with the mark now? You know, again, if you put in a decent ball to him, he's pretty unmarkable. If he's given any chance with a ball, an early ball into his chest, if he's out in front, you know, if he plays that lead, like the Tommy Walsh did so well last year in the league, and that we'll probably talk about later on. But, you know, do Mayo say, okay, we've got a small bit of, you know, lack of depth of match-winning forwards, you know, and maybe we're okay in the middle of the field, or maybe it's a thing where we start with Aidan inside, and, you know, when Tom or Matty get tired, and it'll probably be Tom at this stage in both their careers. Do we take Tom off and do we move Aidan out now? And is he fresher playing, you know, 40 minutes at full forward? Will he do the lung busting up and down the pitches that you have to do as a modern day midfielder? And does he come out then kind of a bit fresher for the last 20 minutes to really drive on? And then if he's having a massive game, you leave him in there and you bring somebody else on. So they're little dark horses. I think Donegal will really be strong this year. And they really need to achieve an All-Ireland semi-final place this year. Even like, I mean, to look at the quality in their squad over the last few years. Yeah. What they haven't done is almost more striking. Yeah, in fairness, no, that like they did come along with a lot of new players last year. So you're never going to, you know, you're always going to have a year or two of these young fellas that have to taste a bit of that tough defeat to drive them on. But they certainly will be, and they're playing great football, more expensive football on the banner, and I think they will, and then I think Galway will be there as well, and you can't rule out Tyrone. So I'm interested to get your take on the big Kerry news this week, which is David Clifford being made Kerry captain. It was always going to happen because of the rule down there.
Do you have any concerns whatsoever? I don't think one person actually has voiced a significant concern about the person that he is. The only concerns that have been voiced is that does it distract from his own graph as a very, very talented young footballer?
I don't think it distracts. I think that, you know, he when I was captain in 15, all you have to do really is a bit more media. You know, as in media that you really don't kind of want to be doing when you're captain, but you're the captain, you have to go out there and do it. And maybe they take a bit of that off his shoulders and move it around and send other fellas out there here and there. But I don't think, you know, Tony Lean is writing in the Examiner about, you know, the main men, the Gainies and the Crowleys and the Morans and the older guys maybe on the squad. You know, they must step up to lighten his load, but
that probably already exists. Like if Gavin White was captain last year, then that leadership group separately exists. Like David Moran is probably the de facto captain in the campus. Yeah. Like I don't know, I've never been in.
Yeah, no, he's a great speaker, and more importantly, he backs it up on the pitch with his play. And Dave does. So, you know, he will. Of course, there'll be leaders all over the place. But I think for the Kerry fan, Clifford's play and his kicking and the love that's there for him already, not only in Kerry, but Clifford is like Gooch that way. I think he's universally admired because of how good he is and the way he plays the game. And he does have edge to him. And I think Gooch had edge to him too, but Gooch was kind of probably got away with it a bit because I was inside there with doing the same thing and I'm a bit more standoutish than him. But, you know, Clifford has edge. You know, I saw it in the first season when the Monaghan boys were trying to bully him above Clonus, and you know, I was kind of a bit worried about that before the game, and I looked over after 3 minutes and he's walking Drew Wiley back the pitch 10 yards by the throat, you know, by the jersey, because Drew was obviously trying to start stuff. So Dave is well able to look after himself in that point of view. But for him, I think for us as Kerry fans, when David Clifford kicks a long bomb this year, there was already, we'd all rise out of our seats anyway because it's David Clifford. But now the fact that it's our captain, I think will even drive people that bit more. And, you know, I think players will really want to try and help him be successful. And yeah, look, I had him with the Tralee IT this year. We had a number of early morning sessions at 7 o'clock, just in the hall, just to, you know, it was very hard to get everybody together in the college setup because they're being pulled by county senior teams, under 20 teams, club teams. You know, there's Conor Keane with the Legion playing the Dublin Cup final this year. Guys with St Mary's that were playing with Carsavine up until the weekend before the Sigerson game. So it was very hard to get everybody together. But what I did say to the guys during the year is I'm not going to be ringing you and pulling and dragging you, trying to get you out onto the pitch when you've already been out there 2 or 3 times with whatever team. But I asked them to kind of get into the gym. We've a beautiful hall in the Kerry Sports Academy with the IT, really long and almost the shape of a football pitch. But it's not as big, but it's 3 full-length basketball courts wide and obviously that long. So it was a place that we worked on tactical stuff, on even skills, even in the runners working on their skills, their hand passing and stuff. And you know, you'd have all these guys in there and Clifford would rock in at 10 to 7, you know, we'd have guys that might be playing junior football in other counties or whatever, or clubs from all over Ireland on the panel, and here's your all-star and your young player of the year from the previous year rocking into training at 7 o'clock on a Friday morning. So, you know, and we didn't get that from every guy, but Clifford was there, and
he must, like,
it's huge for.
He's an easy guy to manage, I'd imagine.
Oh, yeah. He's easy because you just don't have to really worry about him. He's gonna do the right thing all the time out in the pitch. But what I found amazing about him this year is the year he had with Kerry, losing in All Ireland after replay, going on to win a county final with East Kerry. He had a bit of a run with Fossa in the O'Donoghue Cup, and I gave him, like, after the county final, I said, look, just take a week or take 10 days. And he was back in the Monday session. He took a week, but he was back in after that. And you know, it's for a guy with all that was going on. And look, let's call a spade a spade. He probably knew he was going to be Kerry captain this year as well, so he knew that was coming down the line. Even though he wouldn't have officially found out till last week, but to do all that and to give the commitment to the college that he gave was heartening to see. So in my eyes, what I saw there was just pure leadership, natural born leader, and he will do a great job as Kerry captain.
Just to touch on the final point briefly, the most important part of the Allianz leagues this year is going to be Division 2 and Division 3. In the football, you get relegated from Division 2 and don't make a provincial final, you're done. You're not in the quest for Sam Maguire. I think all these games should be on television. Like, they're going to be incredible, these battles, especially when you look at the context of someone like Cork in Division 3.
Unbelievable, yeah. And you know, the battle for promotion in Division 3 and to avoid relegation will be huge. But I think for a lot of teams that end up in that Tier 2 competition the following season, and I said this last night, if it's marketed properly and it's promoted properly and we're talking about it in here enough and the games are competitive and the fan from that county is going to games against teams of equal ability and they're winning games in the last minute with a goal, that'll drive fierce momentum in counties. So I
have hope.
I've hope. The proof is in the pudding. John Horan and the GAA said we're going to market it right. Like, look at the job Lidl have done with
women's football. Yeah.
Women's football. Like, the crowds are getting the games. They've promoted it. They've ads on TV. Somebody smart needs to say, this Tier 2 championship, we can make a big deal out of this. You know, we can, and we'll get good games, and we'll make stars out of maybe people that we didn't know too much about. Like, you know, in the last few years, I know more about women's football and certain women players, and I listen to interviews and I read interviews in the papers about them that I wouldn't necessarily would have done maybe 10 years ago when I was playing, you know. And I think the job that Lidl have done promoting that has been brilliant. And I think every young girl now is going to games, is watching games on TV. They see 60,000 people at these finals. And can there be more done? Absolutely. But somebody needs to get on board with this Tier 2 championship and really market the hell out of it and get it out there. And there's onus on us in the roles we have in the media to really, you know, go behind the scenes into these counties and find out who the heroes are in these teams and who are the guys that have been there for a long time, or who's the new hotshot on the scene down there, and, you know, what the manager has done since he's come in, and, you know, and in the GAA have to make sure that these games are on, you know, at peak times where people can watch them. And you'll always sit down. I'd love to sit down and watch. You're on about these Division 3 and Division 4 games and Division 2 games. You're saying, oh, well, it'd be great to see more of them on TV. You want to sit down and watch them. Why do you want to sit down and watch them in the league?
It means a lot, you know.
It means a lot, and it's going to be tight, and they're teams of an equal level. And how sick are we are sitting down Saturday night watching Leinster Championship, Munster Championship, and they can talk about the Ulster Championship, and the Ulster Championship has...
Tyrone Antrim, I was on BBC last year. It was the worst thing I did in all of 2019 as well.
Yeah, Tyrone, Donegal, you know, Monaghan, but like you've 3 or 4 Division 3 and Division 4 teams up there, like Derry and Down, and they're gone down the ranks. So like it is like the overall writing thing is for players to keep playing the game. We're going to have to shorten the season, get rid of the provincial championships, move it to a league and championship as we talked about last year, but really tighten it up and get more games where teams of equal ability are playing each other. We see it in hurling every year. We see it in our own county in Kerry when they win a trophy in the lower tiers of the hurling. It's huge. It's huge for that group. That group gets momentum going on before. You see what Laois did last year in the hurling when they came up with a trophy in their back pocket with a bit more confidence. They went out against the very best teams. They performed better. Everybody was on board. How can people get on board with training for 8 or 9 months and then ended up the season on a hammering?
It's true. And I'll put it to you this way. You look at the Division 2 fixtures this weekend. Armagh against Cavan, Westmeath against Clare, Roscommon against Laois and Kildare against Fermanagh. Knowing that 2 of those teams are in danger of not competing for Sam Maguire this year, it makes them unbelievably appetising fixtures. It'd be great to have them in full